Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Ruach Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Isaiah, the 48th chapter. As we went through in the 47th chapter, which dealt with the destruction or the downfall of Babylon, daughter of Babylon, also known as Babylon the Great, which is in the scriptures referred to as Babylon, but in modern day America. All right, so there's a difference. You have the ancient Babylonian Empire, which was historical, and then you have the daughter of Babylon, or Mystery Babylon, or Babylon the Great, which is written of in prophecy in the Bible, and that refers to America today. Anyway, as we covered, the downfall or the judgment / destruction the Lord would bring to this place, which was prophesied by Isaiah in the 47th chapter, we now lead into the 48th chapter. And continuing back on the same theme that Isaiah has been, or the Lord has been emphasizing via the prophet Isaiah for the past couple of chapters, which is Israel's hard-headedness, and their swiftness to credit idols and disregard their own power or their own God, no matter what the Lord does or how much he proves or shows them that he is our God. And now no matter how much he shows how worthless these idols are, Jake just don't get it. So this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 48, verse 1. Hear ye this, O house of Jacob, which are called by the name of Israel. And I believe at this time, the northern kingdom had been removed from their land, right? Because you had the Assyrian Empire, which was the dominant world power at this time, and they had come under the reign of Shalmaneser V. They had besieged the northern kingdom and ended up deporting them out of their land and importing other nations into that region of Samaria and so on. So primarily here, Isaiah is referring to or dealing with the southern kingdom, which collectively was also known as Judah, though it consisted of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And you did have a mix of some of the northern kingdom Israelites that were scattered amongst the southern kingdom here. So, as he says here, O house of Jacob, which are called by the name of Israel, which, as we know in history, the Lord blessed via an angel, blessed Jacob and changed his name to Israel. And so all Israelites would have the suffix in terms of the name Ban Yasharallah, right? Son of Israel, because they would all descend from Israel, and are come forth out of the waters of Judah, which is another way to say that you're, let's say, born of Judah, right? Or of Judah, or pertaining to Judah. And when you think of coming forth of the waters, it's similar to like birth, because that's what happens, right? You're technically in water. And that's why the term when a woman goes into labor is that her water broke. And then, the baby is coming forth. Which swear by the name of the Lord Yahweh and make mention of the God of Israel, but not in truth, nor in righteousness. So they feign themselves to be servants and worshipers and the people of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, but indeed they don't show it. Right, and in words they do, right? They take oaths in the name of the Lord, right? They make mention of the Lord. They openly declare as though they are truly serving the Lord, but behind the scenes they're doing things contrary to what the Lord says. So Isaiah is addressing them, verse 2. For they call themselves of the holy city, right? So they tout of being, of the chosen people of the Lord, right? We are the And even you had some of the southern kingdom looking down at the northern kingdom, because they were like, well, because of all their wickedness, this is what the Lord did to them. Now they're up out of the land, right? They should have been more like us, Meanwhile, they got skeletons in their closet. Anyway, for they call themselves of the holy city and stay themselves upon the God of Israel. When you stay, right, it's basically to depend on. So they show themselves as though they're depending upon the Lord, and calling themselves of the holy city, separate, sanctified. But in spirit, that wasn't the case, because if it was, Isaiah wouldn't be here. Well, he wouldn't be here in the timeline of where we're reading up in Isaiah 48, telling them this message here. The Lord wouldn't have had to give this message to them had that really been the case. The Lord of hosts, Yahweh, is his name. Verse 3, I have declared the former things from the beginning. So now the Lord is saying and letting Israel know that anything that you have seen come to pass and anything you will see that's going to come to pass, I'm the one who's A, making it come to pass. B, all the things, the records you read of, the prophecies, I create those. And then I reveal them onto the prophets who then prophesy about them. And then they come to pass. I do all of that from the beginning to the end. The entire life cycle of prophecy is under the control of the Lord. And he is in this chapter emphasizing that to Israel, that it's not your idols, it's not your vain beliefs, it's not you, it's me. For verse 3, I have declared the former things from the beginning. So the former things, the things of old, the things of ancient times that came to pass, before they were from the very beginning, I set them up. And they went forth out of my mouth. See, so ultimately, really, in actuality, prophecy comes first from the Lord. And then it is revealed or given to the prophets, right? So really, the ultimate prophet or prophecy comes from Yahweh before anybody else, because he's the one making it happen. Right? So as it says, they went forth out of my mouth. Of course, they were made public or published by the prophets, which are also likened unto the mouthpiece of the Lord. And I shewed them, right? So the Lord revealed them before they happened and then made them manifest. I did them suddenly and they came to pass, right? So there were prophecies that the Lord had taken longer and then they happened. And then there were some that were shorter, but yet they were announced or revealed before they happened, and then they happened. Verse 4, because I knew that thou art obstinate. When you go into the word obstinate, it goes into being hard-headed or stiff-necked. And thy neck is as an iron sinew. Now the sinews or the ligaments and tendons in your neck allow you to move your neck. And as it reads here, and thy brow brass. So the Lord is comparing the sinews in the neck of Israel to iron, because iron doesn't bend. And the reason that this analogy is being used to describe them being hard-headed or disobedient is because, take for example an oxen, which you yoke, say, 2 oxen together. When you drive the oxen, you direct it, okay? And they would have in ancient times a goad, which is like a metal-ish kind of stick that has a pointy end, and you can poke the animal if needed be. Say they stopped moving for too long, or they going in the wrong direction, you use it to direct them. But when they stiffen their neck, then they would be hard to move them in any way, because they wouldn't turn, they wouldn't move, they would just basically budge up and not do anything. Okay, and then sometimes you poke them and they'll kick back at you. That's the terminology, kicking against the pricks. The pricks that the driver would poke, would prick them with, they would kick back against it. But in any case, so stiff-necked here, right? By your neck being able to move, it allows you to, in this case, be able to be taught, right? Be molded, right? You turn your neck to see what the Lord is trying to show you, right? You use your neck to bow, right? In adherence to the message or the reproval of the Lord. But by stiffening your neck, or your neck being like iron, you basically cannot do any of those things. as it says here, and thy brow, which goes into like the forehead, brass. So when they make their forehead difficult, which the forehead in the past, in the ancient world, was also looked at as the seat of like your will. So by making their forehead brass, they're being brazen, right? They're not subjecting themselves onto obedience to where you can teach them or you can get through to them. So the Lord said, I knew you were stiff-necked people. I knew you were people that don't listen. You always think you know it all and you just don't listen. And you see that today. It's the same because it's in their spirit. It's the same characteristics. They have no idea what they're talking about, but they speak as though they know everything about it. And then you prove them wrong, or they go and do something that shows everybody they're wrong. And yet they're so brass-necked and brazen-headed that they can't even at that point admit fault. Verse 5, I have even from the beginning declared it unto thee, right? So the Lord is saying, like, from the very beginning, all the things that have happened, all the things that you've gone through, I declared it to you. I showed it to you. And that's why whenever the prophets came on the scene, they would come in the name of the Lord to say, thus saith the Lord. This is what the God of Israel said. So you know it's co-signed. You know, okay, we heard such and such say this was going to happen, but they came in the name of the Lord. They said, this is what the Lord said I should tell you was going to happen. So you know that the Lord is the one who said it. The Lord is the one who declared it. And he is the one who's making it happen. Before it came to pass, I shewed thee by way of what? The prophets. Lest thou shouldest say, mine idol hath done them. And my graven image and my molten image, all three of those are referring to the same thing, an idol, hath commanded them. So the Lord is like, no, I made it clear, right, by showing you these things before they came to pass. So you can't say, oh, it was actually this idol that we made. It was Molech or Baal or whatever that actually made it happen. That put us in captivity because we were disobedient to them, or because we broke a piece of his hand. No, the Lord is like, no. I'm telling you that if you don't stop this idol worship or this adultery or idolatry or whatever, I'm going to bring the Babylonians against you. And I told you this 70 years before it happened. I told you 100 years before it happened. So when it happens, you can't turn around and say, no, it was the idol that made that happen. Verse 6, thou hast heard, see all this, and will not declare it. So I've told you these things, I've showed you them as they manifested, and yet you still won't, admit and understand that I'm the one making it happen. So rather than bowing down to a piece of wood like an idiot, repent and come back and seek the one true living God. It's like I've repeated in previous chapters. It's easy to see why the Lord gets so frustrated especially with idol worship, because it's like it's insanity. It's something that you shouldn't even need to be told, right? To where you know it's blatantly obvious that the one who's making it happen is the Most High, and yet you're for some reason you're choosing to bow down to a piece of wood that you made. It wasn't there the day before you thought about making it, and then all of a sudden, after you decide to cut it down and sculpt it, get a carpenter or whoever to sculpt it up nicely for you, all of a sudden it's now the most powerful being in existence. But it wasn't there yesterday when before you made it. So the Lord is like, yo, am I missing something here, or are these people going senile? Where we at? Verse 6, thou hast heard. Oh, actually, I just read that, didn't I? Yeah. Continuing in verse 6, I have shewed thee new things from this time, even hidden things, and thou didst not know them. So the Lord is like, look, I show you the record of the things that I showed you in the past. You'll say your idol did it. So I'm showing you from this point on, what I'm telling you right now is new. You didn't know it before now. You never heard about this before today, because it's something new that I'm about to do. It's hidden because nobody else knew it, right? And you didn't know it. they are created now. So what I'm about to tell you, I'm now making it. Okay. It's like when you ask somebody, right? How does it go? When you're talking to somebody and you ask them, "Oh, you ever seen that movie, blah blah blah," and then they say, "Oh yeah, 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 that's yeah, I've seen that one." And then you ask them, "Oh yeah, what was it? When was it that it came out again?" And then they'll tell you, "Oh yeah, it was like what, like 5 years ago, 10, 15, 15, 10." And you're like, "Bro, the trailer dropped yesterday. The movie hasn't even come out yet." Right? So the Lord is saying, I haven't even dropped the movie yet. I'm showing you the trailer now. Before today, you didn't even know this. Before a movie trailer comes out, you don't know that the movie exists. Okay, you don't even know that they're making this movie here. If they don't announce it and they haven't showed any trailers, the trailer is to let you, oh shit, oh, they coming out with this now, right? So that's what the Lord is saying now. They are created now. I'm making these things happen now, right? From this point on is when I'm gonna set these things in motion, right? Not from the beginning, even before the day when thou heardest them not. So before today, you didn't know about these things that I'm about to do, these new things that I'm declaring onto you. Okay, these aren't things that I declared in the past. So you cannot come and tell me, right? As it says, lest thou shouldest say, behold, I knew them. You can't come and tell me you knew these things because I didn't make them happen yet. I didn't even mention it. Like the example I gave you. The fact that the Lord has to go to these lengths and then you turn around and look at our people today and you're like, yo, we're talking about the Most High here, the most powerful being in all of existence. And he went through to these lengths to prove to you something he didn't have to do. And yet you still look at our people today. And now you understand why the Lord is going to bring destruction, because what hasn't he tried? What hasn't the Lord done? So it's time for a reset. Verse 8, yea, thou heardest not, yea, thou knewest not, yea, from that time that thine ear was not open. So the Lord's like, no, you've never heard this, you never knew this, but from the time before, right, from the time that thine ear was not open, meaning basically when you were in the womb, right, when your body was still being formed, because when you look at the body in the womb, it starts off looking like a piece of shrimp, and then you really look like you have a tail. And then it starts to shrink in. That's why you end up having a tailbone, right? But it starts to shrink in as your arms and your feet start to, form. And then your eye gets bigger. The head is like super big. And then your actual ears. So that's why it takes a process of about 9 months, right? Your ear actually starts to form, and then the canal, all of those things. So what I was saying before that, in other words, while you were still in the womb, for I knew that thou wouldest deal very treacherously, and was called a transgressor from the womb. Damn. So the Lord is like, I knew you were going to be rebellious from because you've been rebelling against me since birth. Both on the physical level, right? Because you just got you just got some Israelites that the second they drop out of that womb and you take a look at their face, like, yo, send them back up. Send this dude, take him back off the earth, because this guy, he ain't gonna do nothing but be a menace and just get more dangerous as he gets older. This guy is not on this planet to do any good way, shape, or form. I mean, look at his face. And then they'll give you them looks. You're like, yo, what is a baby that just came out 3 days old giving me mean mugs and side eyes for? But also on the sense of a national level, right? From the conception of the nation, which it goes back to how we were formed in Egypt and then we were delivered. From that very beginning, the Lord told Moses, yeah, nah, this ain't gonna work. he's like, yeah, I can already see this is not gonna work out. Like, these people are already being disobedient. And I started with something simple. I just said, hey, I'm giving you food from heaven. I'm giving you manna from heaven. Do you realize you're eating a miracle, right? And all I'm saying is, bro, if I fed you for 5 days straight. On the 6th day, I'm telling you, okay, only on the 6th day, collect double, because on the 7th, you ain't getting nothing. So you collect that enough. Some dumbass gonna say, you know what, it's the 3rd day. Let me just get more anyway. You got it the 1st day, right? You still got it again the 2nd day. You didn't need to gather more on the 1st day if you wanted to get on the 2nd day. The Lord told you he was going to give you. If the Lord didn't want to feed you, he wouldn't have given you any in the first place. But lo and behold, big nose, fat backed, enlarged back Jakes out there picking out more, more than the Lord told him to. See, so the Lord's like, nah, this is not going to work out. Okay. Verse 9, for my name's sake will I defer mine anger, and for my praise will I refrain for thee, that I cut thee not off. So the Lord is like, look, I for my name's sake, because the Lord is tied, he's bound his name within Israel, right? We are the nation of the Lord, right? So we praise the Lord, we glorify the Lord, right? The nations look at us and they glorify the Lord. So the Lord is like, for my name's sake, and for this storyline that I've set up, I gotta curb that anger, right? I gotta punish you in measure, because if not, and I was just going based off of what you deserve because of your actions, you would have been cut off. There would have been one less nation on the planet. Verse 10, behold, I refine thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. So the Lord is like, I've purified or refined you, but not the same way silver is refined, right? Because you put silver in the midst of fire and you, you purge it to get off the dross and the impurities. But the Lord is saying with you, I'm not putting you in literal fire, right? But through the furnace of affliction, hardships, difficulties. And they try you, the equivalent of how fire purifies silver. For you, these things you go through purify you. These experiences you go through that are hard and difficult, they make you better. If it's a test of your faith, you come out having more faith. You come out overcoming that doubt, right? Which makes you more valuable, like silver that has been purified. Okay. And this links up with was that Zechariah or Zephaniah? One of those. Let me just pull it up now, because I quoted it. I would bring the third part through the fire. Oops. Third part. Zechariah 13:9, and I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried. They shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord Yahweh is my God. This fire here, that at least the way that they are being I should say, right, refined, is like we're reading here, through the furnace of affliction to make us better. Verse 11, for mine own sake, even for mine own sake will I do it. For how should my name be polluted? And I will not give my glory unto another. See? So the Lord is saying, well, if I was to just destroy you, right? An example of this was when the Lord determined to destroy Israel in the wilderness. But what did Moses use? What was one of the cases he used to plead, for the Lord to have mercy? He said, well, Lord, if you kill them here in the wilderness, then, that's going to be not glory to your name, but these nations are going to say, oh, look, he couldn't deliver them. That's why he just destroyed them in the wilderness. And that would pollute the name of the Lord, right? It wouldn't glorify him. So that was an example case of where the Lord was like, you know what? If it was just for their sake, they would have been gone. But I chose them, right? I performed these miracles. I let it be known that, hey, these are my people and I'm delivering them. So if I just slay them in the wilderness, well, that's not going to look too good. So similarly here, the Lord is saying, for me, now I got to do this for me so that I don't look bad. Okay. And so because of that, I'm going to have mercy. I'm still going to deliver you because I promised that I would do that. And I will not give my glory on to another. Right. So that's why the Lord is doing this, proving beyond a reasonable doubt and co-signing everything he does. So you can't turn around and do what Jeroboam did and say, hey, you see these golden calves over here? Yeah, they're the ones who delivered you from Egypt. Verse 12, hearken unto me, O Jacob and Israel, my called, right, my chosen. I am he. I am the first. I also am the last. So the Lord is like, listen, there's nobody else. I was there at the very beginning. I'm going to be there at the very end. It's just me. Verse 13, mine hand also hath laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand hath spanned the heavens. So the measurements of the heavens, the creation of the earth, all of those things are from the Yahweh, are from Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. He's letting it be known. I did these things. When I call onto them, right, the heavens, basically creation, they stand up together. So they respond in unison. If the Lord commands the animals to do this, the trees to do that, the heavens, the stars, the sun, the moon, what did he do with Hezekiah? When he had the sundial turned back a certain amount of degrees. And then we went into in that chapter that the sundial, the degrees on there moves in one direction, which follows the way the sun moves. So as time progresses forward, the degrees move like a clock hand. In order for those degrees to reverse, the sun has to reverse its course for a certain amount of degrees. So you could see that. Okay, because the shadow of the sun and where it's positioned is what casts, the sun is what casts a shadow on the sundial that tells you what time it is. Similarly, during the time of Joshua, the Lord held the sun up, right? So he basically like expanded the duration of one day into about 2 days or so, if I remember correctly. This is an example of the Lord, them when he calls or onto them, they stand up together. So they do what the Lord says. He commands everything. Verse 14, all ye. So the Lord is like flexing and he's showing like, yo, I do all of these things. Like the example I gave in a chapter or two ago where you got all these things, but the woman you're dealing with is out here, trying to give it up to a mannequin. You're like, yo, I own companies. You know what I'm saying? Look at the house that we live in. Look at the mansions. Look at the car. I got all these things. What the hell you doing with that stupid ass mannequin? Don't even talk. Verse 14. All ye assemble yourselves and hear. Which among them hath declared these things? Right? So basically now everybody come and listen. You talking about your idols are idols. Which one of them has showed you all these things? Which one of them was there at the foundation of the earth? You realize that the material that your idols are made of were created by the Most High. And yet, how is your idol greater than the Lord? The Lord Yahweh hath loved him. He will do his pleasure on Babylon, and his arm shall be on the Chaldeans. Okay, now here, when it says loved, it's really, in the sense of, in reference to Cyrus, okay, it's more so of the Lord delighted to choose Cyrus to do that job. Okay, and I'll pull this up in the NLT before we progress forward. But as it reads here, have any of your idols ever told you this? Come, all of you, and listen. The Lord has chosen Cyrus as his ally. Now remember, Isaiah was a long time before Cyrus was born. Right, the Cyrus that we're dealing with here, otherwise known as Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenid Empire. So it says here, the Lord has chosen Cyrus as his ally. He will use him to put an end to the empire of Babylon and to destroy the Babylonian armies. Okay. So as it says, the Lord hath loved him. He will do his pleasure on Babylon, or his delight on Babylon, and his arm shall be on the Chaldeans. Now, what's interesting here about this, and there are other precepts that are like this, which I think is worth mentioning, is that there are often times where the Lord has certain things prophesied. And yes, we know that according to history, some of these things were fulfilled. But the Lord has these prophecies, so almost layered, right, by wording them or arranging them in a certain way, that prophecy gets fulfilled, which we now know as history, but it also symbolizes an even greater event or an even greater prophecy that would then take place on a much grander scale. Okay, but it's almost like a symbolic foreshadowing. Okay, even in the way the Lord words it, that then plays a bigger role later on, right? And we know that the Lord has certain events which have happened, right, through the lives of the prophets or certain men of the Lord, and that symbolized something that would then happen on a national level. For example, what the Lord told Ezekiel, the things he had to go through, which would represent what Israel would have to go through, with same with Hosea and so on. So here, I mentioned that here because though contextually, right, the Lord did have Isaiah prophesy about Cyrus, as we just read. And yes, historically, Cyrus did take over the Babylonian Empire, putting an end to the Assyrian rule of Babylon, because the Neo-Babylonian Empire was ruled by Assyrians, right? Belshazzar and Nebuchadnezzar, they were Assyrians. He did put an end to that, okay? But on a deeper level, we know that Yahushua is going to do the same thing to this Babylon, okay? And in on that spiritual sense, in that case, we know, all right, the Lord does love Yahushua, right? And through Yahushua, the Lord will perform his pleasure. And that pleasure is really destroying this place, as we read in the previous chapter. Okay, as it says, and his arm shall be on the Chaldeans, which they're basically like the upper echelon of the Babylonians, right? Which is what he's going to do. So I just wanted to mention that in there because you see this oftentimes. It's like this, there's a prophecy or there's a precept and it's layered with like a spiritual layer on it to where the Lord has it worded a certain way. It's going to happen a certain way. But when you look at the grand scheme of things and the storyline of how the Lord has set things up, you see an even bigger event happening that seems almost connected with the wording of some of these precepts here. Anyway, verse 15, it says, even I have spoken, yea, I have called him, I have brought him, and he shall make his way prosperous, right? So the Lord called him, as we read up above in context, Cyrus, he set him up, and he did make him prosperous. The Lord made him prosperous, which even Cyrus acknowledged. But the Lord made him prosperous so he can conquer these nations and these empires, so that he could be in a position to fulfill the will of the Lord and play the role that the Lord set him up to do. Okay. But as I mentioned, always on that, that spiritual layer of it, which we're even going to see as we go on down, getting to the end of the chapter, right? There are other instances where, you see this, this sort of sentiment, heavily so in Yahushua, okay, in a different time period, of course. But just wanted to mention that. Verse 16, it says, come ye near unto me, hear ye this. I have not spoken in secret from the beginning, from the time that it was, there am I. So the Lord is saying, from the very beginning, I've made these things plain unto you. I didn't speak this inside of some closet somewhere where you can't hear it. Amos 3:7 says, before the Lord does anything, he reveals it to his servants, the prophets, and they come and tell you. As it says, from the time that it was, so really from the beginning, before anything happened, there am I. The Lord was there. And so now switches to the tense of Isaiah, right? And now the Lord God and his Spirit hath sent me to do what? To come and speak unto you, reprove you, rebuke you, and to forewarn you of things to come. Verse 17, thus saith the Lord Yahweh thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, I am the Lord Yahweh thy God, which teacheth thee to profit. Right? So the Lord is saying, look, I'm the one who is teaching you the ways that will benefit you, which leadeth thee by the way that thou shouldest go. Right? I'm setting laws, statutes, and commandments. I'm sending prophets to guide you and lead you in the path that is going to be most beneficial to you, the right path that you should go in. Verse 18. So what does that look like? When you're enticed by these nations to consume pork or shrimp or crab or lobster as a delicacy. And the Lord says, no, you're not supposed to do that. He sends prophets to come and warn you and tell you, stop eating that if you're eating it, because the Creator didn't design it to be eaten by you. The reason that is an example of teaching you to profit, or in a way that you should go, is as you consume these meats thinking that, oh, it's meat, just like chicken and lamb and beef. The problem is the side effects. You end up with health related issues that can be detrimental and even lead to your demise, because you're misusing this creation and so you're going in a way that you shouldn't go in, and it's going to lead not to your profit but to your demise. So the Lord sends prophets to warn you, and that's just a very minor example, but it's just to show you what it looks like when the Lord tries to lead you in a way that you should go. Verse 18, oh, that thou hadst hearkened to my commandments, then had thy peace been as a river. So if you had listened, then you would have been, your peace would have been as abundant, okay, as the boundless river, and thy righteousness as the waves of the sea, right? You would have been surrounded, you would have been overflowed with righteousness, like how these waves are, in the sea. It's just metaphorical talk. Verse 19, thy seed also had been as the sand, meaning innumerable. So, like, what does that mean? Well, that means you would have been safe. You would have been prospering. You would have been fruitful. When your seed is as the sand, that means, one, your women are very fruitful. You're not suffering from women being barren, having miscarriages, and so on and so forth. So you can populate quickly and successfully. Two, you're not in a condition where you're being put in captivity, or you're afraid to have children, or you're oppressed, because then you can't really, spawn, right? New children freely and take care of them to where they live, and then they have kids, and so on and so forth. So when your seed or your offspring are like the sand, where they become innumerable, you're in a position of peace. You're flourishing. And the Lord is saying that's what would have happened if you had listened, because you would have been blessed. And the offspring of thy bowels, so the children that come from your loins, like the gravel thereof. Gravel is synonymous with like sand, right? Grains, or a grain of sand. His name should not have been cut off nor destroyed from before me. See? So when you take heed, okay, what's an example of your name being cut off? You're a man, you have a family, right? Obviously, you have descendants. They take your name, your family name, and then it continues on and on and on and on, right? Son of this, son of that, son of this, son of that, son of this. When your name is cut off, that means the Lord has wiped out your descendants. There's nobody else left to pass on or carry that name forth. So it stops right there. That happened, right? That happens in certain cases when the Lord brings a mass judgment upon a particular people, and he says, I'm going to cut off all they that piss against the wall because of them being disobedient. So the Lord is saying that wouldn't have had to happen, right? There wouldn't have had to be cases of people not being able to, prove their records, right? As when you read in the history of Israel, right, we ran into situations like that, or just certain family names just being cut off because they were disobedient and the Lord destroyed their descendants. Verse 20, go ye forth of Babylon, flee ye from the Chaldeans. Now, verse 20 is more pertinent to our time now, right? The prophetic Babylon the Great. And you may say, well, it seems like sometimes when you read these chapters, the prophet may be talking about things in the past, and all of a sudden, boom, he's talking about the future. Then all of a sudden, boom, he's back to the past. But keep in mind that as they receive these visions, it's not always that the Lord is going to show them everything just in chronological order, right? That's why in the 47th chapter, it talks about the destruction of Babylon, but that's a future Babylon. But from Isaiah's time, it's a future Babylon, right? Because the Neo-Babylonian Empire was future from Isaiah, But the Babylon in Isaiah 47, it was going to be future from that Neo-Babylonian empire, right? AKA America. So how they receive these visions is not always going to be in just like the easiest form or easiest order. Sometimes they're receiving a vision about this, that, this, Israel, this, that, this, and then boom, they see something about, the elect being delivered, for example. And then the Lord will reveal to them, yeah, this is what happens at the end. This is how the elect get delivered all the way at the very end. They may say, oh, Lord, oh, damn, oh, that's nice, but why are you showing me this now? Just go and tell them. So then we're reading it and we're like, okay, he's talking about this time, then this captivity, then all of a sudden, boom, he's talking about the elect rejoicing. Well, that's what they saw, right? And so when they prophesied, they prophesied about things to come, and it wasn't always going to be A, B, C, D all the way, through. Verse 20, go ye forth of Babylon, flee ye from the Chaldeans, with a voice of singing declare ye, right? And this, first starts with fleeing mentally, right? Departing from this place mentally, detaching yourself from it, but ultimately will be fulfilled with the actual physical deliverance of Israel from Babylon the Great, starting with the elect. Tell this, utter it even to the end of the earth, right? Which we're in now. Say ye, the Lord Yahweh hath redeemed his servant Jacob. And that's what we're preaching about. The fact that we are preaching is the proof that the Lord has redeemed his servant Jacob. Because the process of us being redeemed would start with us being revived. And so the fact that we know who we are and we're prophesying about that means that we have been revived, or we're in the midst of being fully revived. Therefore, we're in the midst of being redeemed. Okay, so we're able to say that the Lord has redeemed his servant Jacob. He kept that promise as he said he would. And here we are back to knowing who we were. We didn't, which we didn't always know because we lost that. Verse 21, and they thirsted not when he led them through the deserts. He caused the waters, this is going back to the wilderness. He caused the waters to flow out of the rock for them, meaning the Lord preserved us in that time. He clave the rock also, and the waters gushed out, right, during the time of Moses. There is no peace, saith the Lord, unto the wicked. Okay, so here, it seems almost a little jumbled up, right? He talks about fleeing from Babylon and the Lord redeeming his people. Then he goes into verse 21, but in 21, he's given an example, right, of how the Lord has always been there for us, even going back to the wilderness, preserving us. However, it's important to note, if you want to continue to be wicked, there is no peace. All right, saith the Lord unto the wicked. You're not going to be preserved. You're not going to be delivered. You're going to suffer destruction. Okay. So that brings us to the end of the book of Isaiah, the 48th chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Recha Kudash. Until next time, Shalom.